So, thumb war today?
Sure.
Okay.
You do the 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a thumb war. 5, 6, 7.
There are 8 of
Try
them?
to keep your thumb straight. Go.
Okay, sure.
You have a distinct advantage. You have more life.
1, 2, 3,
You have more life.
4. How long do you have to hold it down?
Go ahead.
I think I won.
You win.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colton Wesley.
And I'm Nolan McCausey.
And we are adults. And I finally got to do the intro.
Yay!
Okay.
Well
so,
done.
Episode 4.
Yes.
We're back. And for the first time, we actually have feedback. We want to open every episode talking about feedback that we get. And we finally have some, which is awesome.
It's
so
very
first
cool.
of all, thank you so much, everyone who's been commenting and writing in and emailing us, etc., etc. So for the most part, it's been people saying that they like the podcast, which is good. And it also seems, Nolan, that I was wrong about how I thought that people would perceive my Pacific Rim argument. Because so far, the comments we have received have said that I am correct and that Pacific Rim is actually a terrible movie.
That is so people's opinions. That's fine. Mm-hmm.
But I'm just throwing it out there. I thought for sure. I listened back to episode 1 when I was editing it, and I'm like, ugh, I sound like an old man. And a killjoy.
I mean, maybe you do. I mean, it just happens to be the fact that a lot of people think the same way. And that's not necessarily wrong. It's a little sad, but it's not wrong.
Old fogies determine culture, apparently. I don't know how true that is. It's probably more true than
we can have an episode on it.
Okay, we'll talk about that, I guess, at some point. So first of all, that is a thing.
And thank you to a couple specific people. Sarah, thank you very much. Sitting here reading some of your comments, and don't worry about spamming our email. This is new, but thank you. Another one, John Paul. Thank you for jumping on and randomly shouting out. That's fantastic. Appreciate that.
So getting into a couple of specifics. Sarah wants us to do a show about Harry Potter, which I think I think it's a good topic. The problem is I don't know jack about Harry Potter because I never read the books and I haven't watched the movies and I'm a bad nerd.
Jack!
So maybe that is something that we will do is I will watch Harry Potter for the first time.
I think that could be fantastic, and then we'll do an episode immediately after and have our... Maybe we should watch all 8 of the movies in a row, and immediately after do a podcast episode.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, we're doing this. I'm writing this down. We're definitely doing this. We need to find a day.
That sounds like an awful, wonderful idea.
This sounds fantastic. Are you kidding me? This sounds great. So a Harry Potter marathon episode.
I think that would be pretty entertaining. Maybe for everyone else.
Entertaining. It's funny because the last episode.
Speaking of which, we should probably jump right in. We're limited on time today.
Unfortunately, yeah. So, real quick, a couple of quick things. One, again, thank you everyone who listens and who comments. If you want to let us know what you think, there are a lot of ways to do that, and I kind of realized that this week. We have a lot of things that we need to be paying attention to make sure we don't miss anything.
Yep.
So the first thing is you can just email us directly at weareadultspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Also, YouTube comments. We do pay attention to those.
Yes.
So if you want to drop something on YouTube, go for it. We also there are comments on the individual web pages if that's more your thing, where each of the podcasts are from. We also have a contact form on our website. You click say hi. You can send us an email through that if you want, and also sign up for our email list. Working on the email list. If you didn't get an email saying that this podcast episode was out, is because we're still working on that. So we're trying to make that work.
We also look out our windows every day between the times of 3 and 4 p.m. We are watching for smoke signals. So if that is your preferred way of communication. We also accept pigeon, messenger pigeons, or if you want to go by owl, that would also work, sticking with the Harry Potter theme. So
I would definitely be okay with getting a message from an owl. That would be pretty cool.
Yep.
And one more thing, Apple Podcasts, we're on, the service formerly known as iTunes, for podcasts is now known as Apple Podcasts, whatever. We're there. Rate. That's what you do on podcast things. You rate it. If you give us a rating, we can get ratings in Apple Podcasts, and it will increase our podcast's visibility.
Which is good for us.
So if you like the show, if you could rate it on iTunes, that'd be fantastic. Also, subscribe and download directly from there so you don't miss an episode. And leave reviews. Those are great. So all those places, email, social media, YouTube, our website, and Apple Podcasts, you can talk to us on all of those platforms, and we will pay attention. And if you tried to talk with us in these past couple of weeks and we ignored you, we're not trying to. We're trying to keep up on everything, and sometimes things, like sometimes emails or whatever, can get lost in the shuffle if we don't check a certain platform. So we're working on that. Again, I didn't realize when we set everything up what it meant to have so many different platforms where people could get a hold of us, and that kind of turned out to be a bit of a mess. So I'm working on that.
All good. One of these days, maybe we'll limit or something. We'll figure it out. It'll be good.
Find a way to streamline it all so it goes to our email.
That's the word I was looking for.
I think I can get that figured out. We're working on it. But in the meantime, like if you go to any of those places, we will catch your message and reply to it.
Hate mail. We accept hate mail.
We do accept hate mail, especially for Nolan.
We might send some back, but
it's possible.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot. We got to segue into our topic for the day. And I'm actually happy to say we have our first guest on today. Today we have with us Matt Brooks, who is a great friend of ours. Went to college together. He's currently a youth minister. So Matt, thank you for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you, friends. I'm glad to be here.
Cool. So, Colton, maybe you'd like to share our topic for the day.
This is the first of a few different shows we're going to do where we talk about different kinds of entertainment, kind of in relation to what we were talking about last week.
Yep. And we thought for today, specifically, we would dive into like board games or card games, kind of the nerd scene, which is something that Colton and I are definitely a part of and proudly support. And I think Matt would probably say the same thing about himself.
As I sit here with a magic card pulled up on my browser window.
I'm sitting here looking at that and being very distracted and like, oh, what do they have coming out in the next set? That's cool. That's nice. So, Matt, maybe just tell us a little bit about your history with gaming. How did you get started in it? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so I guess surprisingly for me, I didn't really grow up playing any sort of card games, board games, role-playing games, none of that. The first time I think I legitimately sat down and played a card game was my first year in college with my roommate Brian. He's a great guy. He was kind of into the Magic scene. I say kind of in a very loose term. And he just had a few Magic cards, and we threw some decks together and we played.
Fair enough. We should have a quick asterisk for people who are like Magic cards. You mean like Magic tricks? No, Magic the Gathering is like its own game. Right. It's a trading card game. It's nuts. It's ludicrous. It's
two-dimensional chess.
Essentially, on cardboard. Yep. And, I mean, we literally have a friend
chess is already two-dimensional.
It's three-dimensional.
Three-dimensional?
I mean, the board is two-dimensional.
They're kind of tall.
They have a third dimension to them.
The third dimension doesn't affect the game at all.
I think Ron would disagree with you. That's a Harry Potter reference, Colton.
He wouldn't know.
We literally just talked about this.
Watch the movies.
I know.
Watch the movies.
We're going to make that happen, okay? Like, Nolan and I are going to watch Harry Potter. Fine. It's going to happen.
And then we're going to play real-life chess.
Yes.
As we're the pieces. Okay, anyway. Sorry. I'm trying to make references, and Colton's not getting it. Anyway, so Magic is a thing. What was probably the first board game that you remember playing?
Oh, man. The first board game? Are we counting checkers?
I mean, okay. Here's the thing. So if you think about the world of board games, I guess there's like different waves that you can think about it in. So there's always been board games. There's always been checkers. There's always been chess. I say always in terms of my 23-year lifespan. For all I know, those were invented like the year before I was born. I'm just using always in the general sense here of my existence.
There have been board games for a very long time.
I know chess was around a lot.
The earliest board games I think were the earliest board games that we know of, as far as history goes, I believe are Egyptian.
I'm actually super interested in this now.
There was a game, I think it was called Senate, something like that.
It's actually, you're correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's the forerunner to a lot of our modern games. I think it was sort of like backgammon, I think.
Okay, typing it into my Google search, Senate found in pre-dynastic and first dynastic burials of Egypt, circa 3500 BC and 3100 BC respectively. The oldest board game known to have existed. Senate was pictured in a fresco found in Merknera's tomb. Mehen, also from pre-dynastic Egypt. So, well done. How did you just know that off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Wow.
What? I like
think you just-
games, all right?
I thought I was a nerd. Like, I thought I knew things. Man, well played. You ever played it?
So, no.
Oh, okay.
The problem is that we don't actually really know how to play. We kind of know a little bit
I
because
don't know. This
we
picture
found...
looks pretty descriptive. It looks a lot like chess.
If there's anything I've learned about board games or games in general, you can make a way to play it, Colton.
Oh yeah, we've tried.
It was probably
But-
like Monopoly.
It was Monopoly.
gosh.
The first casualty was brought about because of Senate. That's what happened.
All right. So real quick, so we should probably like make it obvious to maybe so like we're relatively engaged in board games.
Yes.
So we play a lot of games that are maybe a little less known.
Right.
When most people think board games,
Right.
they're thinking Life, they're thinking Monopoly,
Right.
they're thinking, you know, those classic board games
Yep.
that you pull out once a year and everyone kind of hates a little bit.
Yes.
Space Checkers.
We do not talk about space checkers.
Space Checkers.
Anywhere.
You need to look that up
That game.
almost immediately. This is one of the highest rated games of all time, and I would recommend playing it immediately.
Space checkers is the exact opposite of everything he just said. I don't even know if I'd call it a game. It's more like a torture device.
All right, I'm pulling it up on Board Game Geek.
But to continue what Colton was saying, yes. So, and that's actually where I was going. Is that there's kind of like those games that like checkers, chess, that are like very simplistic, everyone knows. Then there's the games that everyone grew up with, like Monopoly, different games like that. Just fun family games.
Apples to apples.
Space Checkers has
Yes.
has a score of 5 out of 10 on Board Game Geek.
I'm
which is
surprised
really
it's scored
bad.
above a 1.
Which is really bad.
Oh, but
by
if
the
you
way.
if you look at the comments though, 100 out of the 113 are by 3-year-olds.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is that misrepresenting Board Game Geek? Because I apologize.
Anyway, then beyond those like beloved classics that everyone kind of plays at family get-togethers, and obviously card games are like Solitaire and card games if in there too. Then there's the modern board game scene, which I think you could almost say probably started with Settlers of Catan.
It really did.
I think
That'd
would
be accurate.
probably be the first one. I mean, I remember like, you know, when I was maybe 10 or 12, that game kind of like hit its heyday, the golden age, and it just like became this huge thing. And then there were a couple, I would say like maybe Alhambra came out soon after, which is one Matt's played with us once.
Mhm.
And then like
Puerto Rico?
I was going to say Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
Was
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
quick
Ticket
after
to
that. And then it seems like in the past, I don't know, 5-8 years, it's just been like board game central. Like it's hitting the point where they're just constantly coming out.
And board games are becoming more and more. It's interesting because it's not just complexity, although complexity does play into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because Monopoly is complex. Monopoly is also boring,
Hmm.
and frankly, not a very good game. So we're getting to this point now where we're seeing these complex games of skill that you have to play several times, but
Right.
at the same time, it's becoming a cultural thing for groups of people to gather to play the same games.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I remember, you know, in college, we were always looking for a fourth person to play Settlers of Catan. There were always games going on in the cafeteria. Like, every day in the cafeteria, there was a Settlers game going on.
Yes.
It was ubiquitous, and that was really my introduction into like contemporary board gaming would have been that. But
Dude, first memory of college for me, like that I actually
Ticket to
remember.
Ride.
Yeah, you and I
Yep,
sat down.
yep.
Like we didn't know each other. We didn't know anyone really at the school yet. It was freshman orientation week, and we sat down and played Ticket to Ride.
yes, we did. And Ticket to Ride is still, it's a fantastic game. But
Yep.
but more and more of those games are strategic, and they're less luck based. They have complicated rules. Like I don't know if you played Agricola. That
Yep.
game is
Yep.
that game's pretty
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
Yeah.
That game's stressful.
That game is stressful just because there are so many rules. It's a good game, but there are so many rules. It takes so long to actually pick up. Dead of Winter is another really good game.
Dead of Winter. Yeah.
So there are, but those games are there are lots of complexities. Oftentimes there's a board. There are pieces that move around the board. There are other pieces that indicate status for certain elements of the game,
Yep.
like rounds or certain points of some kind. And there are also cards that it's not so much luck based now as much as it is those are how you distribute resources and and even in those games there are still dice because randomness is an element of most games to some extent. So there are so many complicated and complex elements, but they're woven together in a way that is it's not as gamey as much as it is story now, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I think even you look at Monopoly as one of the greatest examples, is that you are the one developing these properties. You are the one who are owning these hotels and whatnot. You, in a sense, are stepping into the role of a developer, of somebody who's in charge, an owner, a landowner, that kind of thing. But then you look at the games that are happening now, anything from Dead of Winter to Seven Wonders, things like that. You act as this entity, and you are participating in the normal, everyday, day in and day out things that entity would do.
And the games are more. They also have a lot more to do with role play now.
Yeah.
Especially games like The Resistance, which it's actually a very simple game, but the amount of player conversation, it lends itself to dramatic role play.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest shift in games is that is not so much in complexity or even design as much as it's about role play.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've noticed just with games in general, like Magic, trading card
Yep.
game, how they introduce it is you are a powerful planeswalker, and you are supposed to participate and lead your armies in this way and this way and this way, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, even the story behind it, like a lot of these games, even though they don't actually have any bearing on the game, they've actually created worlds that these games fit in, like Magic the Gathering. There's a huge story.
Yep.
Like, it's a game, it's just a card game, and you don't have to know the story to understand anything about the game itself. But there is a massive, massive story that's like working behind the cards, that's kind of shaping where they're going with the cards and what they're doing with the game itself. So even in that sense, it's story.
I think that, I mean, in board games in general, and card games in general, and even to a greater extent, the role-playing games, at that point, you're literally stepping into a story.
Yep.
You are taking the role of one of the characters.
The role.
I get it because there's dice. That, yeah, makes sense.
Roll a save from embarrassment.
I got a 1.
Crit fail. All right. Yeah, I mean that's what led me into the whole gaming scene, and actually getting into it was I think one of the times I played. That was my first experience with role playing, and Brandon led our game, and I was very gracefully accepted into the party, and that's what started me with the whole wanting to DM and lead a story.
And that's another one of those things about these kinds of games is that they lend themselves so strongly to community.
Yeah.
Especially role-playing games, because your party is like you are meeting every week, every other week, however often, as a group to collaboratively tell a story. And it also encourages inclusion of other people because, like you mentioned, Brandon is a good friend of all of ours, and he's the guy who introduced me to the games as well. And by extension, I introduce other people to games, and those people will introduce them to games, and that's how the community grows, and that's how those games get built. Because you were in a game that Brandon ran, and then I was in a game that Brandon ran, and then you ran games for other people, and then I ran games for other people. Now those people are starting to pick up games, and that's just how it works. And at some level, they're all tied together because someone started a game with a few people and it just kind of branched out. And I think that's the reason that these games have picked up in popularity, especially in recent years, is because it just takes that one person, to spark an interest in somebody else.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to be a part of storytelling. And to be honest, we're not all very good at storytelling, like writing books or, even composing music. That's those kinds of storytelling elements. They're not things that we all are able to engage in at a high level. But role playing, you just jump into the shoes of a character. You don't have to worry about the world. You just kind of play your part in a way that kind of it reflects the narrative quality of life in general.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the powerful play goes on and you will contribute a verse kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's so true because you think about some of the games we've played in, and like there are moments where like that I can look back on the games that I've been in, and they're like legendary moments. Like that you sit down with that group of friends that you were with, and you can laugh years later. Like, do you guys remember in that story when that happened?
Yep.
And it's not just that it happened in that story; it's the fact that you as a group made that moment.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the whole story aspect for me. Whether you're involved in the story itself of the game or the stories that you get to tell about the game, it all comes back down to the story. Because you can look at these things and tell stories about each other in person and what happened during that game time. Or you can tell stories about your character and what happened during that game. And it's incredible how you can sit down and do both and enjoy it with a community of people.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, too, is we keep coming back to its story, but the whole purpose of that story is building that community. It gives you that sense of being a part of that larger group and getting to do that with them that makes it worth it.
Because at the end of the day, the reason... and again, there are solitaire games. There are games that are just, you're supposed to play for your own, your own amusement.
Right.
But for the most part, games are intentionally communal. That's part of their appeal, is that you're gathering with your friends, and weekly game nights, things like that. We've all participated in those kinds of things. There's the game itself. We don't remember who wins and loses half the time, unless and there are some instances where the game is just so particularly memorable. But for the most part, we don't gather to compete as much as we gather to commune. And as much as we want to win, we want to be, we want to engage in.
We want to be the very best.
Yes, we do want to be the very best.
Don't give me that face, Matt.
It's funny.
Don't give me that face.
Oh, I'm just thinking of Pokemon Go and raid battles.
That's exactly it. No, raid battles.
Yep.
Raid battles in Pokemon Go. Now we are able to. I took part in my first raid battle in downtown Washington, D.C. yesterday.
That's legit.
Did you win?
Yes, I won, and I got something.
Oh no!
I'm trying to remember what it was.
I didn't. Lugia or Articuno?
Articuno.
Oh, I hate you.
I got an Articuno. Thank you.
Man.
I didn't grow up on Pokemon, so for me, I just kind of play. But for me, Pokemon is a social thing for me. I don't play by myself.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
I play with others. We'll go downtown, at night, and just catch these little digital, non-existent creatures on our phones. But it's a good time. It's great.
Right.
And I think that games are starting to be more intentional about lending themselves to the community aspect instead of the competitive aspect, and that's why we have so many cooperative games now.
Oh yeah,
like Dead of Winter, like Pandemic.
Yep.
These very popular games where your object is to collaborate and to
beat the game.
Beat the game, exactly. It's it's like with a video game, your object is to beat the game, but now you're doing it with other people, and that's MMORPGs.
Yep.
World of Warcraft, things of that nature. It's again, you're collaborating with other people to beat the game. Sometimes you're playing against each other to some extent, but for the most part, you're doing things as a group trying to accomplish goals. So I think that's probably the most important element of gaming, and I think that's something that the gaming community has really started to focus on in recent years.
Oh, absolutely. One of the formats that I play in Magic, I've stopped playing Constructed almost completely, which is the variation where you collect a bunch of cards and then you build a really good deck and then you destroy other people. And started playing more of it is Constructed, but it's Commander or EDH. And this is just one of those formats that the most ridiculous things can happen, but it's kind of a social format. That's what Wizards clarifies it as. That's what the creators clarified it as. That it's a social format because you get together and yes, you're trying to win, but the moment that somebody starts winning, suddenly everybody's teaming up and then destroying that one person. And you just build and build and build like these teams together. You tag team things and you spend time wrecking one person until, they get low enough and then you start winning and they wreck you. That kind of thing. It's that competing for the same goal and just kind of making it work.
Mm-hmm. And less competitive and more fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's, not about destroying the others, but having some fun while doing it.
Mm-hmm. Because there is that aspect of certain games like Magic or even some online games like League of Legends or StarCraft, like that actually, I don't know if you're aware, but like there are tournaments. Like there are nationally, in some, I think in Korea, there are nationally televised matches of some of these games.
StarCraft is huge in Korea.
And you can win like tons of money. Magic, we actually, well, it wasn't through tournaments, I don't think, but we have a friend who paid his way through college with Magic cards.
Yeah.
You can win. Like, there are huge tournaments for these games these days where you can win so much money. Mm-hmm. And that's another side of games that we could talk probably a whole episode about.
And and games themselves also have their own inherent entertainment quality. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be playing a game to be entertained by one. And that's why we have things like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Like, there are... and game shows in general, we have entire TV networks devoted to watching people play games because it's fun watching other people play games. Like there's a reason Let's Plays on YouTube are so popular because it's fun watching other people play. You don't have to be playing yourself necessarily to enjoy what's going on.
We kind of play vicariously by watching them.
Yeah, we do, and it's one of the reasons why it's become such a popular medium for storytelling is because it's not something that you necessarily have to be participant in to be participant in.
Mm-hmm. Kind of on the flip side of that, now that I'm thinking about it, there are just some things too that you become fully participatory in, like the role-playing games, for instance. There are times when you sit down and you play Pathfinder or D&D or something like that, that who you are kind of comes out in the game. It's not just about the game being there and being entertaining, but it's kind of about showing who you are and what your interactions are with other characters and with other people and that kind of thing. That it's just so fun to watch people play Pathfinder because all of a sudden you see if they are the lawful good character, those qualities in them. If they're the chaotic, you see that very clearly, and you get to know them in that way, and it kind of just reveals itself.
I think you're right. I think that games bring out a lot of us. I think that we bring a lot of ourselves to games, no matter what game that is, and I think that's one of the reasons that it works as a communal activity is because you don't separate the person you are from the game you're playing. I mean, like some people can to some extent, but you will always have some element of this. At the very least, it's your understanding of the world that reveals itself during a game, the way that you perceive things.
Yeah.
Your understanding of things. Even if you're playing as somebody else, you still have your understanding of how things work, even if you're playing through a different character's goals and ambitions.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that absolutely irritates people is when I play Settlers of Catan. because I'll trade with anyone and everyone for whatever they need, even if it doesn't benefit me, because I know at the end of the day, like, oh, that's helping them, and this is probably going to benefit me in the end, because they'll remember that and they'll help out. But just trying to help them and get them towards their goal too. And people hate that, absolutely hate that.
And that's one of those things that when you play with the same people over and over again, you learn so much about people's play styles that it affects the way that you play the game. And also, but that perspective on the game is one of those things that makes gameplay unique. Like, are you playing this game to win? Are you playing it to enjoy yourself? Are you playing it for the sake of community? Why are you playing this game? And to some extent, it's a combination of all three. Like, we're all trying to win, but no one wants to be that guy.
Yeah, that's right. Trying to be kind and caring as much as you can.
Right, within the context of still trying to beat your opponent at the game.
Yeah, that's one of the things too. Just with some of the games that are coming out now, they have the secondary objective.
Yeah.
So they have the primary objective, which all of you are trying to get to, but then you have your secondary objective, which is your personal one. So, working together as a team to an extent.
And sometimes one of those things that makes it fun is, especially in like Dead of Winter, sometimes those secondary objectives are actually counter to your main objective. So that character is actually trying to subvert what the group is doing while role-playing as a member of the group. And again, like they're trying to win, but the object here is storytelling. It's a unique way of playing that out. It's like but it's also random. So you aren't coming into the game trying to subvert everything. It's just the character you're playing, the role you're playing.
And having to step into some of those roles, it gives you a unique perspective on a lot of things. I mean, having to play your character the way that your character would play, as opposed to how you would play it, it allows you to see kind of the other side when people are trying to win at all costs, trying to do whatever it takes to gain victory, even if that's not your style, not who you are. And so, I think
it helps us understand people too.
Yeah.
Like, it's an exercise in, I don't know if empathy is the right word, but it's certainly, at the very least, like trying to recognize where other people come from. Dealing with things in games that you don't deal with in your life is a way of understanding how other people actually do live their lives. Because they have struggles and obstacles and also advantages that maybe you don't have, and learning how to play with those as a character helps us understand them a little better in real life. It doesn't necessarily make us like fully cognizant of those things, but it helps us become more empathetic.
And I think that's one of the draws for gaming, is that you don't have to stick with the normal standards of your own ability. You don't have to be just good at these things or bad at these things. No, you get to role play and step into a whole other character that gets to do things that you might not be able to.
And that's one of those things, especially when we're building characters for Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. When you're creating your character, you're selecting your skill set. It doesn't have to be you. It's you're playing the character, but the character's strengths and weaknesses are not your strengths and weaknesses necessarily. They can be, but they aren't necessarily.
And that's definitely one of the draws to gaming. I think every game, board game, card game, role-playing game, has an aspect of role-playing in it. At least most of them do. And being able to step into that role is just fun, stressful, but fun too, to not have to be confined by who you are.
To escape the limitations of your own body, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole idea with storytelling, like what we grew up on, Star Wars, on Lord of the Rings, on Narnia. It was this whole idea of being a hero or taking care of those and protecting and being strong and amazing. And when playing games, you get to kind of be that. Even if you're not that way or you don't have those opportunities in real life, you kind of just get to step into the role of the hero for a while. Because
we all have the desire to be a hero. Like, that's why our stories revolve so much around being a hero.
Yeah, we all want to be that. That's one of the things that I grew up hearing, is that someday you're going to be a knight in shining armor for a princess or for a damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
And so now's the time. You get to play the game. You get to be the knight in shining armor,
Yeah.
or the orc in leather armor and spikes. You know,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, whatever those roles are that you wanted to play, you know, and they're all most of them revolve around strength to some extent. You know, nobody wants to play the character that is incapable or incompetent. Everyone wants to be, or maybe they don't mind being the incompetent character if that character can develop competence.
Mhm.
That's another common thread in story is the person who can't becomes the person who can. You know, the chosen is, you know, the chosen isn't ready, but the chosen must become ready, and that's especially in like Lord of the Rings. That's a huge element of that story. So becoming something that we want to be, you know, that evolution is also a part of, I think it's part of what we want. It's part of what we want to be as people. So being that strong, you know, that strong queen or that knight or that, you know, wizard or whatever, whoever you are, like that's, it makes sense that we role play as those things because those are the things that we want to be.
Yeah, I think we choose the best qualities and we try to exemplify those in our gaming, and I think that's I think that's a fun thing to try to emulate. It's enjoyable to try to play the super intelligent character, even if you yourself aren't the super intelligent one, or the super strong character, or whatever it is, whatever you choose, to be that hero and to have that quality. And I think that's why Pathfinder and D&D, whatever it is, specifically really lays out a person's desires, or their gifts too, and how they play, because that's who we are or who we want to be. So we act that way. I think going back to the community idea, I didn't get a chance to mention it earlier, but one of the first games I played was with a good friend of mine, Tommy, who came here to Great Lakes, and we sat down and we played a game, and it was a chance to build a relationship and a friendship that is still in existence. And I think that gaming can be used, if used correctly, gaming can be a community building thing. I think that's one of the reasons that the gaming community is growing, because what has happened, at least in the video game community, is it's gone down to a single player sit on your couch and play a game, as opposed to the couch play. Mm-hmm. And so people are noticing that there's something missing from our society, from who we are, from our culture. And one of the ways to combat that is to find some reason to meet together.
Yep.
And board games are a great way to do that.
And they're pretty universally accessible.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Most people, no matter, you know, where you're from or what your background is, will engage to some extent with games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the question really is, sometimes the complexity of certain games can be daunting, but there are games that are not complex that have that accessibility that will get someone into gaming in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like mentioned earlier, the Resistance. Super simple concept, really not difficult to play, but the amount of great play that can come from that game will draw people into gaming in general and keep them there. And then now we're starting to use the technology that is more or less ubiquitous to play more games, like the Jackbox games. You know, someone sets it up, the game's on a server, everyone plays on their phone, you project something onto a screen that everyone watches to, you know, as kind of like the central hub for the game. But it's a super simple thing for people to jump into. Like, here, go to this website on your phone, jump in and play. Mm-hmm. It's extremely accessible. Mobile gaming is huge, and that is extremely communal as well, in a lot of ways. Some of those games are very, you know, they're solitaire style, you know, meant to be played when you have 15 minutes to spare kind of thing. But a lot of those games are built around, you know, working with other people to accomplish tasks, or playing the game with other people, connecting with other people who have similar interests, like Pokemon Go probably being the prime example of, most people who play that game with other people who play that game.
Mm-hmm.
And there are team events and team battles, and the idea that you are not just doing this on your own, but you're also playing this game with other people who care about the same things that you do.
Mm-hmm. And, finding value in the teamwork, finding value in the fun of it, I think is super important for gaming, because I know a lot of people discount board games, card games, that kind of thing, as a waste of time. But when used, once again, in the right way, for community building and for spending time together, I think it can be super beneficial.
Mm-hmm. And they make us better people.
Yeah.
They do, because we learn how to see the world from other people's vantage points. There are benefits personally, like we learn how to cooperate. We learn, and these sound almost silly, but we learn how to play well as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn how to establish common goals and to achieve those goals. Gaming has benefits other than just being entertaining. I think that's one of the things that we're going to keep coming back to during this entertainment series, is that entertainment is rarely just something that amuses. It's also something that enlightens. I think we're going to keep coming back to that. I think it's going to be a regular point that we're just going to keep. It's going to be something we keep coming back to.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to keep coming back to, because it's a good reminder of where we're at, that we still need to learn, even if it's through the medium of gaming, having fun, and during that time, learning how to work together, learning how to succeed together, and how to fail together. I think gaming has helped me do that, and I know it's helped others too.
All right. Well, at this point in the program, we would be phasing out of our guests, and so we would have some fun little dittyful music. Dittyful, I made that up. We'd have some fun little dittyful music playing in the background. There'd be a nice transition. It would sound real professional and would reflect the level of expertise that we bring to this podcast. That music is not complete yet, so we're just going to outro from that conversation with this little awkward message. So here's our outro into the ending of our podcast. Yeah.
Good job, Nolan.
No, I aim to please. That's why I'm here.
You were successful in your endeavors to transition us out of the middle of the podcast and into the end. So, wrapping up, of course, we always have a cool person doing cool things.
I believe you're on this week.
Yeah, my turn for the cool person doing cool things. I think is that what we call it? I feel like we change the name of this section every week.
We should probably
I think it's the same on the website every week. But I noticed that we've called it different things in the actual podcast every week. Or I keep saying every week; it's every other week. But every time we do this show, we've been calling it something different. So I don't.
Should probably get a definitive title down for that.
Yeah, the definitive title is on the website and it's in the show
is.
notes. It's the same thing. We're just gonna have to make sure that we are using the right term every week.
Yep.
So anyway, the cool person doing cool things this week. It's kind of a two-parter in a way. There's one. The last one that I talked about 4 weeks ago, two podcasts ago, John Boyce, he released a new book. So, a couple of days after that podcast went live, his new web novel, 17776, came out.
Wait, what?
It's 17776. It's 1776 with an additional 7 in the middle.
Oh,
okay. The full title is 17776, A Football Story. It is amazing. It has very little to do with actual football. It has everything to do with what happens to us if we gain if we reach the point in the progression of humanity that we kind of want to reach, what will happen to us?
Sounds interesting.
When we reach the pinnacle of human progress, what does that mean for us? Where do we go from there? What happens to us? It's super, super interesting. It's really good. There will be a link in the show notes. It's worth reading. Everything he writes is worth reading, but this is very, very good. It might be the best thing he's ever written.
Dang.
And that's saying a lot. It's very, very good. So, worth checking out. That will be in the show notes. 17776, A Football Story by John Boyce. We will link that. So, the cool person doing cool things this week. So, in light of talking about entertainment, especially games, I wanted to bring up, and this will be appropriate for when we talk about video games coming up,
Yes.
because that's a conversation we look to have soon.
Yep.
There's a YouTube channel called Extra Credits. They talk a lot. Most of what they do is talking about games, particularly video games, their benefits. It's a lot of video game theory, if you will. A lot of analysis about what makes games work, what makes a good game, what makes a bad game, the process of building video games. It's really, really interesting. As someone who is not a big video gamer, I am fascinated by this content, by what they have to say. It's fascinating, especially because it does translate into other storytelling mediums. It translates a lot into board games and into writing and all these other things. They do a lot of really cool stuff. They do some. It's not really about game recommendations, although they do some of that, and I've found some really great games through them.
Mm-hmm.
Most of what they do is analysis of games in general and what they bring to the table. Sometimes they talk about genres, but it's a lot of really great stuff. We will link that in the show notes. Extra Credits is the name of the channel. They also do a bunch of extra bonus stuff. My favorite is Extra History. It's actually how I discovered them. They decided that, you know what, there are a lot of really interesting stories from history that need to be told. So we're going to take our nifty little animated video style, and we're going to tell stories from history using that same style. And they've done some amazing work talking about things that you wouldn't think would be interesting, like the quality of water in Victorian England. And, like, it's super weird, the stuff that they found, like the South Seas bubble. Unbelievable stuff that they found. We'll link all that in the show notes.
Fair enough. We should say, okay, if you're unfamiliar with what show notes are,
maybe
you have no
good
clue,
point.
we should say this. So if you jump onto our website, weareadultspodcast.com, if you look down, like if you click on an episode and start scrolling down, you'll see like the play button and stuff. But below that, Colton has included a bunch of links to everything we talk about in the show.
Right.
I just wanted to say this because I think they're really cool. He does a good job with the show notes.
It's a way for us to incorporate things into the show that require more than just a couple of guys talking about them. Things that we reference or things that just need, like, if we're going to talk about something that's a visual medium, we need to be able to see it.
Yes.
So we link those in the show notes to make life easier for you guys who are trying to track with what we're talking about sometimes, and also so that there's a place where you guys can get the stuff if you're interested in any of the things that we reference or talk about. So like this week, there's probably going to be a whole bunch of Board Game Geek links in there.
Oh, yes.
Realistically, is probably what's going to happen.
Yep.
So all the games that we talked about, we're going to link them to there. We're going to link them in there.
Those people we talked about at the end there.
Yes,
they'll be
and
there.
the cool people doing cool things, we link those as well. Another thing is, so those show notes don't just appear on the website, they also appear on your phone if you are listening on Apple Podcasts. And those links are clickable. So if you're listening to the show, you can just click the link right there. It won't take you out of the app. It'll just show you what we're talking about.
Yep.
So hopefully the show notes add something. Hopefully they're helpful.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, weareadultspodcast.com. I mean, every time we get a chance to say the website name, we probably should. But yeah, it's a good time.
Yep. So I think we're going to kind of wrap up here. So
I think that's it. So real quick housekeeping note. So we are going to be recording like crazy people this next week because after this week, we get really, really busy.
Yes.
Nolan's getting married. I'm moving. So this week we are going to record as much as we can. We have a bit of a backlog, so the stuff coming out in the next couple of months isn't going to necessarily be new
for us.
For us,
you,
it's not going to be it's not going to be irrelevant, conversation. But we're not going to get to feedback for a little bit probably until we get into late September, because that's when we will be settled into our new lives. So we probably will go a month without recording, very likely. Before we start picking up again. So we're going to record the next several episodes this week.
Because we are adults.
Because we are adults. And this is what adults do. They plan ahead.
Yep.
And they don't procrastinate.
That, we already talked about that.
We did.
Sometimes we do.
Well, yeah, we do. We try not to procrastinate too much. So yeah, I think that is I think that's it. So
and you know what though, if you do want to contact us, like we are going to be recording later this week, so we will have feedback a little bit if you contact us quick via our email and whatnot.
There's a lot of whatnot.
Yeah,
We're-
lots of whatnot.
all of those links are also in the show notes. So
Yes.
if Twitter or Facebook is your thing, YouTube, whatever, email, all those links will be in the show notes.
And as I was reflecting, tell us what you think about board games. Maybe put some of your favorite board games if you get a chance. Like, we took it from a very philosophical angle, or not philosophical. I'm sorry, almost psychological angle of looking at how humans
Kind of a
interact with them.
sociological angle.
Yes, sociological, cultural. So maybe you're like, guys, you thought about this way too hard and way too long. Maybe you just want to have fun with games. Like, give us your opinions. If you agree with us, disagree with us.
I do want to know, and also if there are games that you guys think that we would enjoy playing.
Yes.
Like, I work for a place that sells board games, so, I get a chance to play a lot of games. I would love to try games that are good, and trying new games is one of my favorite things. So, and Nolan too.
Yep.
We play games, we gather with our friends all the time to play. So if you have suggestions, by all means, let us know. And also suggestions for how we're going to open the podcast, how we're going to decide who goes first. We're running out of things. We're still going to try to make that bicycle and selfie stick joust a thing because that's awesome. It's a great idea. But in the meantime, we still need some ideas. So please let us know, email us, comment, whatever, so that we have some more ways to decide who gets to start the show. However,
Definitely.
in the meantime, we need to end the show, and we will decide that the same way we decided to open it, by a thumb war.
'Kay. Redemption time.
1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a thumb war. 5, 6, 7, 8. Try to keep your thumb straight.
'Kay.
You have those pianist quick thumbs.
I figured out I don't have the length, but I
1,
can. Oh,
2,
come
3.
on! Ah!
Oh!
Fine, go.
Well, that's it for us. I'm Colton Wesley,
And I'm Nolan McCausey.
and we are adults.